Tonight, we focused on what's happening in Russia. Its revenge on Ukraine for the Kursk incursion has started. You heard that right. The Russian troops have finally started a counteroffensive operation aimed at taking back territory claimed by the Ukrainian forces. No, the Russians have not officially declared their big counteroffensive, but purported visuals from the battlefield as well as testimonies from bloggers monitoring the situation on the ground all point to it. The first indication? Heavy fighting. According to Major General Apti Alaudinov, who commands Chechenya's Akhmat Special Forces fighting in Kursk, Russian troops have gone on the offensive. The Russians are reportedly taking back control of about 10 settlements in Kursk. Alaudinov is also deputy head of the Russian Defense Ministry's military political department, and he said, and I'm quoting, "The situation is good for us. A total of about 10 settlements in the Kursk region have been liberated," quote unquote. Not just that, new footage circulating online showed Russian troops pushing Ukrainians back in Kursk. Pro-Russian channels on Telegram are releasing video clips that they claim show Russia's 51st Guard Regiment near a settlement called Snagost. According to reports, Snagost has been named by the Russian Defense Ministry as a location where fighting against Ukrainian troops has been taking place on a regular basis. Another one reportedly showing a group of Ukrainian POWs, prisoners of war, walking down a road while some have their hands behind their heads, others are holding up injured soldiers. And what's more, the Russian forces are said to have taken several villages on the west of Russia from the area that Ukraine said to have carved out in Russia. The Russian Defense Ministry said troops had defeated Ukrainian units in a number of villages. But there was no independent confirmation or immediate comment from Ukraine. Like I mentioned earlier, Russia is yet to confirm the counteroffensive, but a Russian counterattack does not come as a surprise for us. You see, ever since Ukraine sent thousands of its heavily armed troops across the border and into Russian territory, it was a death knell for East Ukraine. According to the Russian military, Ukrainian casualties have surpassed 10,000 during the month-long incursion. Sure, Ukraine surprised the world and Russia with its bold and risky cross-border assault. It left Russians embarrassed, humiliated. After all, for the first time in the war, Ukraine was taking on the so-called aggressor on its soil. But it was a gamble because Ukraine, a war-battered country, was taking on Russia, a big country with a far more formidable military. After the first few days of battleground success, it was pretty clear that Ukraine's Kursk gains were not worth the risk. It basically weakened its battlefield position, especially in East Ukraine. Ukraine hoped that its Kursk operation would force Russia to pull troops from eastern Ukraine, but the opposite happened. Instead of pulling troops from the Donbas front line, Russia continued to push forward with Ukrainian troops focused on the Russian region. Russian troops also made advances in East Ukraine, capturing more settlements and closing in on a key Ukrainian stronghold, the city of Pokrovsk. Capturing Pokrovsk would be a major win for Russians. Pokrovsk is a logistical hub and industrial powerhouse, and it is seen as a gateway between eastern and central Ukraine. If the city falls, Ukraine not just loses supply lines in the entire region, but Russian forces acquire a launch pad for mounting more assaults, this time deeper into Ukraine. And this means easy control of other strategic Ukrainian cities. Along with Luhansk and the Donetsk province, which basically comprises the eastern Ukraine's Donbas region and whose control remains the main objective of Russia's war in a way. Simply put, Ukraine cannot afford to lose Pokrovsk. Yet, knowing how close the Russian threat is in the east, Ukraine pushed on with its Kursk objective in the hopes of using it as a bargaining chip in any future talks. Was that short-sighted? Was it wishful thinking? who are we to say? What we do know is that Russia is in no mood to take it lying down. Moscow has made its stand pretty clear. If earlier Moscow was ready for peace talks with conditions, now it's not. The Russian president has dismissed the idea of peace talks in the immediate aftermath of Ukraine's Kursk raid. What then was the purpose of what happened in Kursk? From where we are sitting, it does not look like peace is going to come anytime soon to Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has in fact given his strongest hint yet that the White House is about to lift its restrictions on Ukraine using long-range Western weapons to hit Russia. Even the British government reports indicating that a decision had already been made to allow Ukraine to use Storm Shadow cruise missiles on targets inside Russia. If Ukraine uses Western weapons against Russia, it will be crossing Russia's so-called red lines. Russia has warned that such moves could risk dragging the West into direct confrontation with Russia for the first time since the Cold War. What then lies ahead? Only time will tell. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.